Hey guys, welcome back to LOFT Project. As always, I'm your host James Robertson, coming live and direct from deepest, darkest Cowden Beath. I've got a very special guest in the studio. It's our first actual guest in the studio. Please welcome to the LOFT Project, Miss Lesley Gray.
Hey!
How are you doing?
I am very well, James. Thanks for having me here today.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Welcome to the studio.
Yes, I know. I know we had tried to do this over Zoom first, but I think the universe had different plans for us, and
definitely,
that's why I'm here
definitely.
today. I do prefer this one-to-one, being here in the space and actually experiencing it, in all its glory. It's very, very cool.
Well, like I said to you just offline, it's more natural, right? It's more. It's how I appreciate we're separated by geography, and it's a hassle to travel somewhere and that. So I understand how why people use Zoom and how easy it is, but it's just I don't know. I prefer people in person. So if it's the girls were the podcast we recorded last night, the girls were supposed to come out, but things happen, life happened. They've all got kids and stuff like that. And unfortunately, one of the girls couldn't come on last night because her son was not well. So hoping he gets better soon, obviously. But I'm happy. I'm absolutely buzzing to have you here. So welcome, and let's make a start. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Lesley, and I live on the East Coast because I'm in the West Coast today. Mm-hmm. So we are here because I would like to share my story of how I've came through many years of medication and addiction. Because I just, especially after listening to Carly's experience in her podcast, I was actually able to relate a lot to her. And part of me is even thinking that, a lot of these things that are imposed on us since we're from being a child, when we grow up, we grow into this thing and we think that it's normal and that there isn't actually any other options, So there's this whole thing of blindly trusting and believing in outside external authorities. And for me, when I was a child, when I was born, I had various things wrong with me. And one of the diagnoses that I was given was cystic fibrosis.
Okay.
Which is actually, the life expectancy back then of somebody having cystic fibrosis was 12 years old. So for the first 4 years of my life, my parents were not expecting me to live any longer than, a teenager. Mm-hmm. So I was treated for cystic fibrosis, which at the age of 4, my mum actually received a letter to say that they got the diagnosis wrong and that I didn't have that. So I had been medicated, for having cystic fibrosis. So this, if you think about the impact that had on my family, my sister, there's 11 years between me and my sister, and, for them, I became this precious wee thing because I was going to not really live very long, So once they got that information that I was going to be fine, and I'm still here, I'm still alive and kicking.
Okay, so what happened with that? Is that not medical malpractice or something? That you've been diagnosed with something wrongly and then been taking medication for it?
Yeah.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Am I getting this right? Is that the one where you're getting fluids on your lungs?
Yeah, and you have to all the back stuff. I mean, it's pretty invasive, So I never had any of that kind of stuff done though because I was so young. So if I did have it, as I grew older, it would have progressed into that. But how it manifested in me as a child was.
What age are we talking?
So from the age of 1 to the age of 4.
Oh wow!
So
just
very young, So this would manifest in really heavy chest infections. I would then have kidney infections. Okay. It was just literally there was so much kind of going on. But so, and my mum still got the letter, and it was actually only about 2 years ago she found the letter and she sent me a picture of it, and I was like, wow, that is nuts. It must have been such an amazing feeling to know that I was going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But so what they said was wrong with me though is that I had a hole in my heart that would eventually heal over time. But so off the back of this, I would have really bad circulatory problems, you know, so my hands would go white, blue, I'd get blue lips in the middle of summer, things like this. So I never had to have like any kind of operations or anything like that, but I kind of feel that, so after all that happened, I then had very severe problems with my kidneys. So I was in at the hospital all the time having tests for this, that and the next thing. I was on medication which was like a preventative, but even although I was on medication that was meant to prevent me from having reoccurring kidney infections, I still had them. Like every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks. Now when I had these kidney infections, I was so ill. Like my temperature would go so high really quick, I'd be hallucinating, it could be really, really bad. And this was pretty much all the way through my childhood. And I really feel that one of the things that was not like pushed and really you know, said to me that this is something that you have to do was drink water. And it's so simple, right? But, you know, I don't know, like you maybe had this as well, because like we're like the same age. When you're ill, did you ever get Lucozade?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly,
yeah,
right?
Original Lucozade.
Aye, the original. So that, like, that actually...
Was that always an urban myth, right?
I mean, I don't know why. I think it's like the hit of the sugar or whatever, or the glucose that's in it that they're thinking, oh, it gives you energy.
Oh, it was just good marketing.
Aye, I mean, if you think about it, they used to promote amphetamine to the housewives, Valium, all this Coke, sugar, like, you know, add sugar to your diet and it suppresses your appetite and all this sort of stuff. So, you know...
Well, that's what I've said to other people previously who've come on. You know, science changes, right? It's complete... like you just said, they were prescribing cocaine and vitamins, and doctors were advertising cigarettes.
Yep, I know.
And they were telling people, what was the name of that drug?
Formaldehyde.
Is that where the babies were all coming? It was with disfigured and no arms and legs
and stuff.
And that was for, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but was that for the women were taking that to stop having morning sickness?
Something like
that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
So there's so you know, like
exactly.
Everything's going on right now, and people say I follow the science.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well,
can it be trusted?
we should always have, surely science always evolves, right? You should have open debate. You shouldn't just be able to say that's science and you can't talk about it, right? So
yeah, 100%. But I just, so it's like now as an adult, I can obviously see, and because I'm so into alternative health and really taking care of my body and stuff, I can reflect back, and what I see is, you know, I see my parents who love me so much and they cared for me and they done everything within their power to help me, you know, but it's like it's not their fault that I feel, you know, at the time the system and the way how everything works, you know, such a simple thing like making sure that you drink plenty of water, you know. And I remember, like, even at school I never really drank water and I didn't like it, I didn't like the taste of it. When you're a child, if somebody is trying to get you to do something and you don't want to do it, you know, it's going to be a tough time.
Especially when you know, like, these days you know what's in drinking water, in tap water.
Aye, so
as a kid, you're tasting metals, you're tasting fluoride or whatever. You know.
Yep. So like, and that actually, so even the whole Lucozade thing, right? If you can imagine what that does to a body. So because psychologically, I've got this association with Lucozade and drinking it to make me feel better. And, you know, when I was growing up, I feel like I would say a late teenager, right up into my late 20s, like I didn't even drink water. I would have like about 6 bottles of Lucozade a day. Can you imagine what my insides were like? Wow. So, you know, and that's just like one. I'm
surprised you don't have diabetes.
Well, I know, this is it.
You literally didn't drink water at all, not even bottled water or anything like that.
If I did have water, it would be like diluting juice with water, which is still no water, you know. But so why I'm even going into this is because it's to explain the psychology as to how my thinking was. So for me, like, as I got older, like at 16, the doctors tried to put me on antidepressants, right? This is how I could relate to Carly's story as well. Now, I knew inside I wasn't depressed. I was 16, I'd left school, and I was like a bum for 6 months. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Who does at 16?
I was gone out in cars like till like 3 a.m, smoking loads of weed,
Normal
sleeping
stuff.
through the day, all that kind of stuff. And my mum was like, "You need to go to the doctors." So I did. Here you go. Here's some Prozac. I'm like, right, I'm not taking that.
What is it? Just as easy as that?
Aye, just easy as that. You're depressed. You need Prozac. But I knew I needed to get a job, right? I knew that. But I also knew that for me to, it's almost like because of all my illnesses and stuff as a child, I became an amazing victim, right? I was so good at playing the victim. And I played on that, you know.
Yeah.
You can manipulate things to, like, so if I didn't want to go to school, I would sometimes pretend to be ill because I'd been ill so many times. I knew how to pretend to be ill, but then what would happen to me, right? This is why I totally believe in like the law of attraction, because so many times when I pretended to be ill, I would get fucking ill. Like both like that, and it would be like, holy shit, I'm not doing that again, you know. So I learned not to kind of talk about with things like that. But growing up and I would say it's almost like being institutionalized by the medicine world.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
So when I was 16 and they gave me the Prozac, but I knew that I didn't need it, so I lied to the doctor.
But by the way, what are your parents saying at this point? Do they believe that you're depressed?
Well.
Again, they listen to doctors, so
yes.
why wouldn't they?
If anything, I felt that that they were relieved that I had a label. Oh, so it's nothing that we're doing. It's nothing that she's doing. It's just she's depressed.
Okay.
And can you see how when you attach labels to things, it disassociates you from the actual issue or the problem, and you're just passing the buck and putting the blame on something, which is no being accountable for what's actually happening. But that's just the sort of psychology that I've kind of grew up with. So, but I did instinctively know that I didn't need them. So I lied to the doctor and told them that I was continuing to take them. And I lied to my mum and said I'm taking them when I wasn't. So, and you know, and some people say, oh, you shouldn't lie. But for me, that was self-preservation. And I'm really, really fucking glad that I never, because that would have been me mucking about with my brain chemistry for no reason. So I'm quite happy that I actually, you know, did lie and never took them. So, and then it was about 6 or 7 months when I wasn't doing nothing, and then I went and got an interview for hairdressing in Edinburgh, and it was my first interview. I got it, and I had a day trial, and after that trial I knew I was like, this is for me. I found my thing, and it was amazing. And so having like stability, having my own money, having
Purpose.
my own direction, I was fine. I wasn't ever depressed, you know. So that was a really good like point for me. You know, I turned everything round. I had my own flat in Edinburgh that I shared with my flatmate Mark, and it was really good and going up on this like kind of high trajectory for a while. But then when you're 17, 18 and you are earning a very good wage, you have your own flat in Edinburgh, what else are you going to do? You're going to go out drinking, taking drugs, getting up to all sorts, you know. So this was like my life, like living that high octane kind of fast life. And by the end of it, you know, it was getting harder and harder to maintain, you know, like the whole going out all the time. I mean, see, having to like work in a salon on a Saturday morning hungover, I do not know how I done it. I can't handle hangovers, and that was, so when I was 16, I mean, I started drinking really early. I mean, I was like, 11 when I was, and I'm so small, right? I'm like one can down, one bottle of hooch, and I would be wrecked, like hooch. Proper Stephen, lemon hooch.
2020, strawberry 2020.
I couldn't even drink a whole bottle of that, and one time I did. Oh my God, I was always sick. So, you know, it's like the whole alcohol thing in that was just, everybody done it. It was so normal.
Of course.
It gives you confidence and all this kind of stuff. But then when I was 16, I went to Room at the Top in Bathgate, my first ever nightclubbing. And like, normally you can't get into nightclubs when you're no over 18, but Room at the Top you could. And this was the first time like when I ever tried ecstasy, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never drinking alcohol again, because like the love and everybody was happy, nobody was fighting, everybody was just like loving the music and all that. And that for me was a big point, because at that point I ditched alcohol. I was like, nah, fuck that. Because you're drinking it.
It's a depressant, right? It is a depressant.
Everybody gets upset, they fall about. It's just like, nah. So I'm quite lucky in that sense, because I do know alcohol is such a big problem. It gets a grip of a lot of people, you know, and it's like anything in moderation, but because alcohol is so socially acceptable, you can buy it in the shops, you know, it's like, it's very insidious. It's very insidious how it works. So for me, like, having this expansion in my consciousness for quite a young age through recreational drugs, you know, again, it's like finding that balance. That opened me up to know that there was so much more out there, like this kind of different vibration where people can meet on this love level, you know, where you're just like, oh, I fucking appreciate everything. And
such an intense feeling of like love.
Yes, so for me, I've always preferred that, you know, but when you do not know who you are, you do not have this connection to source, you don't have like a proper internal compass, you know, it's very easy to get lost. It's very easy to get lost. And by the time I'd kind of done all my hairdressing training, and then I was in a relationship with my son's dad, and when I fell pregnant, that was a key changing thing, because that totally changed the direction of my life. So I moved out Edinburgh. That sort of lifestyle, you know, was getting crushed down a bit, and I had a mortgage and all of that kind of stuff. So it was like going for like total party life to then mum, mortgage, all of this. But underlying, I'm still not happy with who I am. I'm still depressed. I'm still, even although I absolutely adore my son and I love him to bits, I'm still really fucked up inside, you know. I don't know what's going on. And quite quickly, it was only after a year, I ended up separating from my son's dad, and things, you know, I was thinking things would have gotten better for me, which they did, because I was getting one step closer to finding myself, but also I had to go through so much hurt and pain before I could even, you know, get to that point. So my addictions got worse because I was on, so by this point, right, because when I'd left my son's dad, I was quite happy to take on the label of having postnatal depression, because again, that's me not taking responsibility for everything that's happening. And I gave in at that point, and I was actually put on Prozac, and I took them because I thought, right, that this is something that's actually wrong with me.
So what actually is Prozac? What is a sedative? What?
I don't. Well, it wasn't a sedative for me. It made me numb. It made me have no emotions. It made me sterile and cold. You know, like very. Just in a bubble. It puts you in a bubble. But also, I wasn't not only on Prozac. I was on Valium, dihydrocodeine, codeine, opiate-based things.
How old are you at this point?
I would have been 21.
So a vast cocktail of prescribed drugs.
Oh yeah. And then there was all the stuff that I was prescribed, but then I was like a little walking chemist. You know, some of my friends would come to me and be like, Lesley, I'm not feeling great today, what have you got? And I have like a box of Valium, gabapentin, dihydrocodeine, loads of stuff. And even stuff that I couldn't get from the doctors, you could buy it online, you know. And I was like, I was so paranoid about no having these things, because I was constantly living this life of, I'm trying to control things, so I'm going up and I'm going down, and then what I'm trying to do with these taking upper substances and lower substances, I'm trying to find this neutral middle line, which this is what I am now, right? So I'm not taking these things, and it's like, why did I not think of that before? Like, why do you go to taking these external things to try and make you feel what you already are? You know, it's like, it's so confusing when you're in it. But so being so intoxicated and so psychologically reliant on these things had really taken its toll. And, you know, it's like some of my friends would maybe say to me, like I met a couple of people who were a bit older and had more experience and they were a bit wiser, and they would say things like, what about meditation, Lesley? And I'd be like, aye, right then, are you mental? I'd be like, no, there's a pill for everything. It's called pro-choice. This is what I used to say. I actually used to say shit like that. Pro-choice, you know, you're choosing to take control of your life by taking a pill. Dickhead, you know, it's like, nah. Yeah. But these are the things, like these are the programs that were running really, really heavy within me. So it was after, so I got really, really, so in the 12 steps, right, this is how I'll segue into the 12 steps. In the 12 steps, you know, you've got the Alcoholics Anonymous, right, and their part that they do, like their 12 steps is, if you actually look at the literature, it's quite religious, like to look at it, how they use the terminology with the word God and stuff like that. And if I had been introduced to the 12 steps like 10 years ago, when I was, you know, well, I was coming out of addiction, it would have been 12 years was kind of like the height, like the peak. If somebody had introduced me to that, I would have been like, it would have put me off, you know. But it was after I gave up the thing that I was completely powerless over. So this is what you do, like in the 12 steps. So for an alcoholic, alcohol is obviously the substance that you're completely powerless over. But for me, now this is quite a strange thing, because when I tell people this, they're like, how the fuck could you even get addicted to something like this? It was GHB. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah, of course.
It's why, you know, it's such a bizarre thing.
I've never heard of someone being addicted to it though.
Yeah, well, but if you can think of, so for me, because I was on such a big cocktail, it wasn't just that. So
yeah, of course.
If you can imagine what a body is like when it's taken uppers like amphetamine, codeine, tramadol, Valium, GHB, can you imagine how toxic my body was? It was really bad, really, really bad.
Wow.
And you know, because as well, like, so I've got two sons, and both of their dads, you know, I'm not with them, and I've not been with them for a long time. So when my children were at their father's house, it was almost like I've been a part-time parent, because it's always been like 50-50, you know.
Okay.
I've never
Shape
ever,
parent, okay.
I mean, that's one thing, you know, like, I've never ever stopped my children from seeing their fathers or having relationships with their other families, you know, like that's always been a very important thing as well. But it was quite hard, because I had to accept that I was never going to have this family where we're all in this happy unit together and going on holidays and doing all these things, you know. And I always carried a lot of guilt for that, because it's me that ended the relationships, you know. It was me that didn't want to be in these relationships, because I didn't know who the fuck I was, you know, and I wasn't ready to be there, you know. So that was always like part of the shame and the blame and the guilt that I carried that fueled my addictions.
So what was the point what was the actual point when you had that self-realization that you had
had an issue?
An issue. Because I guess there's a lot of denial involved before you...
Big time.
Because, again, I'm no expert on anything, but I guess you can't even begin the journey of fixing yourself until you admit it to yourself.
That's it.
I'm not just going... This is not just a normal weekend, I'm going out and partying, I'm kind of taking things on my own or whatever. So at what stage and what was it the final kind of like the straw that broke the kind of camel's back that made you realise?
Well, there had been so many things that had happened, so many things that had actually happened that only I knew, that scared me to the point where I knew that if I couldn't at some point gain power or it's almost more like autonomy over my body and my choices, that something bad was going to happen. I was either going to die or, you know, and the way that I was feeling, and it's one of these things I'll never forget it. I was my son's dad was actually still living with me at the time, but we were split up. And I can just remember like being my youngest son, he was sleeping with his dad in our big bed, and I was in in my son's room on the bottom bunk, and I'd kind of been there, like, I'd been sleeping there for about 4 or 5 nights. I hadn't washed. I hadn't, like, for 5 days. I was feeling shit. I was just like, I wanted to die, you know. I was like, at that point, I didn't give a fuck about my body, how I looked, caring for myself. I was totally like, just fucking take me now. I want to go. I didn't want to be here anymore. And it was in that moment, it was like this feeling, this thing from inside. You know, I ended up having this conversation, and it was right, look, you don't have to stop this right now, like, as in go cold turkey. But how's about this, Lesley? How's about if you stop taking so much and we can start coming down in increments? And, you know, and that for me, I was like, nah, I didn't want to do that. And I was fighting this, totally having this conversation, fighting it, being like, nah, I didn't want to do that. Why I can't live if I can't be happy if I didn't have this? Because I would get up in the morning, right, and I would be genuinely happy with this smile on my face, and like my pals knew that I was unhappy, and they'd be like, how the fuck can you just like go about as if everything's all right? It's because I was so intoxicated. I was on so many medications and so much drugs. It was like,
so at this point, do you have family and friends saying, you like, listen, you need to stop, we're worried? Did you have any kind of support, or did people trying to help you at that point?
So I had people saying to me, like, so my family knew there was things wrong, right? But what got the blame and what it got put down to was, you need to sort your medication, go back to the doctors.
Okay, not the underlying issue.
No, no underlying issue, no nothing about the psychology, nothing about that. So I would be quite happy for everything to hide under this guise of, oh, Lesley's medication's no right just now, you know. And I let people believe that for a very, very long time. So, and I never really had anybody, apart from, you know, my son's dad, who obviously he's seen me at lows and highs, and he's seen some pretty wild things, you know, and he did do his best to help and support me. And he obviously said, you know, you've got to stop doing this to yourself, man. Like, why do you keep doing this? And but I do feel like he protected me for a while, but the thing that he was protecting me from was from me hitting rock bottom and being able to actually get better, you know. But he loved me, and he loved his son. And what do you do when a person is in that kind of way? When you love them, you stand by them, you know. And it's like, so it was a very, very difficult time, and it was like trying to juggle this thing of knowing that I was going to have to deal with like all my shame and all my blame and all my guilt. And it's like the prospect and the thought of that scared me so much, but I had to do it. So basically, after having this kind of really like intense moment with my conversation with myself, which I really feel it was like my higher self was saying, look, we can do this together, you know, we can start winding you down. So I'd done so much research on withdrawals from opiates, from GHB, which, by the way, there's not, I mean, there might be more now information about GHB, but it's such an unknown thing. Like, it's a very common drug to be used within like the gay community and stuff, because it was actually the first time I ever tried it. I was 18 and it was in a gay scene, you know, and that was, and as soon as I tried it, it was one of those things I was like, oh, I like this, because it was like, it made you feel awake, slightly drunk, but not, do you know how when you get drunk you have this like, you black out and you can't remember? This was different, you know. So it was like I kind of found that thing that enabled me to pretend that my life was a-okay and that everything was good. So, you know, realising that I couldn't do that anymore, I after all the research, I'd taken great care, and because I was so panicky about what was going to happen to me, and when I started coming down off everything, I slipped into psychosis so many times. I was so frightened. I actually thought I was going to lose my fucking mind. Like,
so when you say psychosis, what does that mean to you? What's the definition of that?
Well, for me, psychosis is like you come out of your body at times and you're not even aware that you're out of your body, and then Like I've had full-blown conversations with people who were not there, and I've turned round being like, they're taking ages to answer me back. There's nobody there, and I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, oh my god, you're like really genuinely scared, you know, like, and this was with alive people who were alive, and then it started happening with people who were dead, and I was like,
Whoa.
oh, for fuck's sake. And this went on for about 2 or 3 weeks, and I actually didn't know if I was going to make it. I really didn't know. Like, I thought, if this keeps happening to me, like, how can I regulate this? How can I balance this out? But eventually, and whilst all this is happening, I'm not telling a soul what I'm doing. I'm not telling a soul that I'm coming off stuff, because I just have this thing, right, where I kind of thought then in my head I would be able to just like come off everything and be like, ta-da, there was nothing ever wrong with me, you know, and like,
yeah.
But that's not how it works. So then it was like, once I came off everything, and I was really quite happy and I was proud of myself, and it was like about 2 months later, and I was just like, wow, I can't actually believe I've made it. And this was just taking it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 minute at a time.
So you went straight cold turkey, you just cut everything off, or you?
No, what I did was I wound. So the thing that I was powerless over, the GHB. So I started like making it weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker, to the point just so that my body wasn't going to go into this like total shock with withdrawal. And that was my main thing that I really wanted to work on, because that was the most detrimental at that time.
So you're doing this by yourself, or are you being enabled by a group of people? Are you with friends and
Myself. I mean, when it all started, there was a whole big scene of us, you know, like
weekends and
all that kind of thing. So a lot of this was done in secret, you know, so nobody really knew apart from the people really, really close to me. But the thing that made it so much more worse was the amount of pharmaceutical meds I was on as well, you know. So, like, whilst GHB wants to bring you down, I was taking stuff that would counteract it to bring me up, you know. So I'm constantly teetering on this. I'm either too high or I'm too low. So I would take stuff to try and bring me into the middle. And so after dealing with the GHB, that was fine. I then had to work on the opiates, the Valium, all that stuff that I was getting for the doctors, which I never went to the doctors for help with that, because I knew it would have been, oh, here, take this antidepressant, take this thing, and I was like, no. So I had to go like kind of cold turkey with all that sort of stuff, because I really felt I wouldn't get the help and the support that I would have needed. And at that point, I wasn't aware of the 12 steps, I wasn't aware of CA, AA, anything like that. So I'd done all of these things like on my own, and the reason that I'd done it on my own was because I'm so secretive and I didn't want anybody to know, you know, like, it's like, apparently this is like a trauma response where you're like, I'll do it all myself, you know, I don't need anybody's help, I'm strong, and all this kind of thing. So it was at the age of 30, so I'm 37 now, and at the age of 30, that was the last time that I went to the doctors with anything wrong with me.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I actually, so I had to phone the doctors not that long ago, in relation to, you know, all the stuff that's going on in the world and that. I said, look, I've been advised to phone you to see what kind of help you can offer me. I was like, but I don't want medication. I don't want any kind of antidepressants. I said, the world right now is like, I'm actually feeling really anxious and nervous. I don't want to go out into the world. There's all these weird people outside wearing masks. I can't understand why people are wearing masks. It makes me feel uncomfortable. People look at me strange when I'm going out and I'm not wearing a mask. I don't like confrontation, and I've got all these things going on. I said, but I don't know what you can do for me without medicating me. And she congratulated me on not being like to the doctors for such a long time in terms of my addictions, because I said to her, if you look at my notes, you will see that up until I was 30, I was coming in asking for prescriptions like 2 weeks earlier as to what, like when they would run out, because I was needing more. And why a doctor can't look at your notes and say, you're clearly addicted to these medications.
And by the way, they weren't even asking you questions.
No,
there was no.
They're not trained to, you know. It's like, And then you feel, it's like you feel like you're like a junkie because you're going, I mean, well, you are technically, because it's like you're going to them and you're lying about things, you know, like, oh, I've got this going on with me. I would go online and see what I needed to say to be able to get something like amitriptyline, which is a really, Carly was on that as well. She was talking about that. You know, so the fact that these doctors, you know, like, they get into this job because they want to help people, right? But it's obviously pharmaceutical drugs is not helping people.
No. I was saying, I mean, I don't want to get into another kind of rabbit hole, but I was saying there's so many people that the glorified drug pushers for big pharma. They've got my personal experience of recently. I've had a trapped nerve in my back, and I was in absolute agony. I've never experienced pain like that before. I went to the hospital. I couldn't walk or move. I had to be off work for a long time. Went to the hospital, sat there for nearly 5 hours, and the guy didn't even examine me, didn't take my top off or anything. Just give me morphine straight away. Just go lie down for 2 weeks. And I was like, morphine? You know, I was like, and by the way, it didn't even touch it. It didn't. I was in so much pain. Laid down for 2 weeks, did nothing. Still nothing. We know right now that it's not the National Health Service, the National COVID Service. You know, they're not interested unless you're dying or something. Eventually got an appointment after having to speak to a doctor twice on the phone because they don't want you to come in, obviously. Told them how bad it was. Eventually went in and she just prescribed me more drugs. And by the way, I went for morphine. She gave me codeine and some kind of anti-inflammatories. It did nothing. It's only until I went to physically had to pay for a chiropractor. And by the way, it was such an amazing thing. Like dealing with the actual physical issue. Not just they're
suppressing the symptoms, you know.
They're so easy. They so just want to give you drugs to push. Like say, it scares me to hear that long list of things that you've been taking for a long period of time, and for somebody so young as well. It's just, and like you just said there, that they weren't asking questions. You're coming in taking your prescriptions earlier. There's clearly an issue, and nobody even confronted you about that.
No, not once. And it's like realizing that there was other ways to heal and get better was a very big thing, you know. So when I realized I had to be doing other things, see, I thought way back at the start that just being off the drugs was good enough, but it actually, yes, it's amazing, it's good to not need drugs and all these pharmaceuticals and all that, but if you are an addict and you don't treat the psychological part of you, I still had this like void, this thing, and I was like, right, and then that's when all the truth stuff, so it's almost like I became addicted to the truth. I became addicted to going down the rabbit hole, and this became the big thing, which is great. It's healthier than drugs, right?
Much.
But you know,
but still addictive in itself, right?
It's still this, like, you're still working with that energy. So what I feel now, like what's happened is, it's almost like rewiring your invisible energetic system. So you're taking the cords and you're unplugging them from these addictions that aren't helping you and serving you, you know, and you're plugging them into things that are going to help you grow and expand. So it was like, after things like learning about the water, clean water, so I started having clean water, stopped drinking Lucozade, which, by the way, I only stopped drinking Lucozade, how many years ago now? It was about 2 years after. So it would have been 2017 before I stopped drinking that, you know.
So by the way, was it always the original, or did you go on to like the orange one? And none of that makes any difference, like, but you know.
No, I actually, it was the orange one for years, and then I went back to the original.
Okay.
And
at the peak of that, how many liters or how many bottles of that would you have drank in one day?
I would buy like a 6-pack, and that would last me a day, and I would maybe have one left over for the morning, and then I would go and buy like I know, it's like, what the fuck?
Wow.
Yeah.
So taking all these prescription drugs over a long period of time, even with all the kind of kinesiology or any of these kind of natural health remedies, has that had any long lasting or kind of effects on you, like damage from that, or?
I don't think so. I think now, like, the body's ability and power to regenerate cells and regenerate itself is so, I mean, I feel now, like, especially that I'm actively doing cleanses and I'm actively doing things with my body to help myself and help promote all these things. I really feel, you can honestly be in the gutter and your body can be absolutely fucked, but if you have the willpower and the determination and the support, you can completely heal yourself. Like, the power of the mind, changing your mindset, it's like it really, really does work. And there's a big reason why this is so suppressed, like alternative healing and stuff. It's like a simple thing like MMS, for example. So I had this thing called Raynaud's, right, which is dirty blood, but they don't tell you that it's dirty blood. They tell you that it's a phenomena that happens when it's not even a disease, right? It's a phenomena. I find that so... A phenomena.
Dirty blood.
I find it hilarious. Where basically your blood cells can contract and expand in the right way that they're meant to. So if I was in here, which is nice and warm, and it was really cold outside, if I was to step outside, like, so go from one heat extreme to another, my hands would like swell. My dad is sometimes, he's had to cut rings off of my hands because my hands would swell so much, my rings would cut in and my fingers would start bleeding and stuff. So this is pretty severe. And this would get triggered by alcohol, extreme emotions. So if I was like under pressure or extremely excited or nervous or something, sometimes I would get like this mark right down my face and I would go bright red, my ears would go red, I'd get like patches all over my chest, and I was on medication for that as well, a thing called nifedipine, for years, right, and it never cured it. I always still got it, and it got really bad in the winter. So it was about 4 years ago, I done an MMS cleanse. So I'd heard about this stuff, MMS. My friend was like, by the way, look, I've been taking MMS to clean my body and stuff. He says, I think this will help your Raynaud's. I was like, cool, I'll give it a go. I'm happy. So I'd done loads of research, and I was like, well, what have I got to lose? Nothing. So I done it, I got my own direct experience with it, and I now don't have Raynaud's. Like, I don't have it anymore. So that's me, like, completely off any medication that I was being given.
So you've never had any of those kind of reactions to anything ever since?
No.
Ever since
and
that?
It's because I've cleaned my blood, so my blood can now contract and expand correctly, and it also, what this MMS does is it oxidizes in the body, and so if you think about how many toxins I put into my body over the duration of 30 years, taking into consideration I had been ingesting medication since I was a baby, right? So the build up of stuff that was in my system was horrendous. So when I've done this cleanse, it's then like, just like your teeth, just like the toilet. If you don't clean your teeth in your toilet, what builds up on it? Plaque. The same happens to your insides, right?
Yeah.
So if we don't take the time to actually strip that back and, cleanse it, it's just going to build up. And that's how people, like, they could maybe be ingesting nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all these amazing things, but if their body and their organs has got this plaque around it, it doesn't have the capacity to absorb it for the body to actually process it. So
I really, my diet is absolutely terrible, and in many ways I'm as awake as I think I am, and the toothpaste I've got with no fluoride in, I'm still drinking alcohol, I still will eat at McDonald's. It's such it's such a contradictory thing. I can only lots of talk about every day. Not only prescribed drugs, but if you look at all the toxins that are in our food system,
exactly.
I go. So I go in the supermarket and all I see is shelves of poison. All these E numbers. You think about the chain of things that go into, even in the crops in the field, herbicides, pesticides, preservatives, E numbers, the whole list of stuff. That's just in the food, the water.
I know.
God knows what they're spraying in. Seen many kind of reviews, peer-reviewed papers of the chemicals they're finding in the soil that's been sprayed, and people are still like, oh, you crazy conspiracy, chemtrails. Crazy. They're finding huge deposits of these crazy chemicals in our ground, in the ground that our food's been grown in. I was just speaking to the girls last night, and we were talking about this. I don't know if you've noticed it. You must have noticed that everyone has this whole kind of the last 10 years, this whole gender confusion, this whole kind of men being no masculinity really kind of being bred out of men. We were talking last night. Is that there was a scientist and he found this certain certain herbicide that was being sprayed on crops in the fields was changing the sex of amphibians were turning from male to female in the fields. So yeah, it's I don't know why it's not plausible to think that that's why we're seeing all this body dysmorphia and
I think they're definitely
men are not men. Alpha males seem to be like a dying or if not already dead breed, right? So we're ingesting not only kind of the prescription things that the pharmaceutical industry that we're taking, but on all kinds of level, in our air, in our food, in our water, our vaccines, and literally everything. So as you're saying, our bodies must be so built full of toxins, and that's not even starting to talk about, because you know yourself, and I hope you're going to speak on it, but how powerful your mind is. If you're thinking negative stuff, that affects that can affect you. Like what's the opposite of placebo? Is that nocebo, right? So in a way that they don't truly understand what placebo is in the first place, do they? But it's a real phenomenon. We know that if you think you've taken something to make you feel better, you can feel better.
Totally.
As humans, we can manifest things, right?
Well, that goes back to when I was young and I used to pretend to be ill, then I would get ill. That's like instant manifestation, you know? It's
a crazy, if you go down that kind of route looking, it's a real phenomenon. But we fall into the trap of thinking that these men in white coats in authority can explain everything, and they don't. That people think that doctors, just because they're in authority, that they should be trusted, and that they're not fallible human beings that are susceptible to agendas, to greed, to money, to bribery, to all kinds of things. So we assume, like, say you're a young baby, you're a young child, you're a teenager, and that you assume they're giving you these drugs to make you feel better, but in reality they're just pushing these drugs for the big pharma companies behind them. There's no, I think I've said it many times. If you've watched the podcast, you'll see that there's no profit and cure, is there?
No, there is not.
It's in their best interest to get you when you're younger and make you a lifelong customer, right?
Totally.
So all these crazy, the correlation between pharmaceuticals, vaccines in general as well, like in all the mass real pandemics of cancer, autoimmune, allergies, all kinds of.
I think all of that stems from vaccines being given to babies.
Yeah.
I really do.
I do.
I've seen a difference. Like, when my youngest son had his 18-month JAG, his vaccine, I can't remember what it is, if it's MMR or whatever, he literally changed. His speech was developing amazing. He was making eye contact with me. He was able to cuddle me, look me in the eyes. And then after his 18-month vaccine, he changed. He would not look me in the eye. He just couldn't. And he was more within himself. He stopped making the sort of progressive sounds to move on to speech. He would get frustrated because he couldn't express himself. And that, for me, I was like, nah. And do you know, I felt so gutted with myself because both, even with my first son, I questioned whether he should get the vaccines. And I was met with my mother and his other grandmother came down on me so hard. Oh, you're no one of the fucking mentalist anti-vaccine people. You can't do that. What if he gets it? And then I was shut down because I didn't have my will and my power. Like, I was just, it's like being bullied, you know.
Yeah, coerced.
Yeah. So
nobody. That's the thing. My daughter's fully vaccinated. I didn't know 18 years ago. I didn't know anything about that. There was certainly nobody like us sharing even kind
no,
of
there wasn't
information about it. It's nothing like, you know, and in hindsight, of course, if I could go back, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have done that, you know. My sister's, I think she's 8 years old now, 9 years old now. She unvaccinated. She was from day one bullied by nurses, doctors, the school, even her peers, like bullied, forcibly bullied, publicly shamed, really nasty stuff to try. Oh, how would you live if something happened to her? All that case.
All the guilt tripping.
And I'll always respect my younger sister because she stood her ground. And you know what?
Amazing.
Our Lily is the most healthiest, articulate, amazing young child. And you could and you can see it because of that reason. I think my older sister, she's got 3, and they're fully vaccinated. Again, we all vaccinated our kids because we didn't know. You can't blame.
Well, we were vaccinated. We
can't blame us.
As well.
Like say Carly's kid. If you watch Carly's, she talks openly that her son's vaccine damage. She's got autism. Direct result of getting a vaccine. Yeah. She blames herself every single day. You can't. No. We trusted.
We didn't know.
We trust doctors. We trust authority. She did what she thought was the right thing to do. Yeah. And since then she's been she's researched and she shared things, and she gets attacked constantly. Oh, you crazy anti-vaxxer. She trying to explain these trolls that no, I'm ex-vax. I have a vaccine damaged son. Yeah. And they still don't see it. Aye. They don't. They don't.
I think until it's happened to someone, I don't think you can fully appreciate the severity or the impact that these things can actually have. And it's like there's no comeback, you know. And especially with everything that's happening now, the fact that this vaccine is still in its experimental trials, you know,
till 2023.
Exactly, you know. So it's like, I don't know if people are just in this place of they're so relieved that they don't even care, like, because they're totally bought into the fear and they're bought into this, that it's like some information just can't get through to some people, you know. It's like, and I feel that this is what the vaccines are actually doing. It's like they're building a barrier up and around themselves where it's just creating more problems. And totally, like, on an energetic level, never mind what's happening to the actual body, like, physiologically, you know, spiritually. Like, for me, this is a very, very big thing. And it's like, you know, what is spirituality? You know, it's like, well, it's the studying of spirits, you know. We all have a soul. We are a soul, you know. It's like making this, when I realised that I wasn't my body, right, I was like, oh man, this is great. I'm like, I actually am my body. And then I realised that, you know, it's like, aye, right, okay, you know your body, but you live inside your body. And then I was like, right, so if I live inside my body, I've now got to take care of my home. This is my temple. This is the only thing that I've got. Yes, I've got an external home, but that's not where I live. I live here, right now, inside this body. And that was a big thing as well. But for a few months, I kind of like almost blamed and passed the buck to my body, being like, that was you that done that to me. That was you that got me in these fucked up positions and all that. And then it's like, then you learn about accountability and being responsible for your own actions and stuff. And then it's like, right, okay, so it's about integrating yourself within the body, you know. And then, so if I think about, so it was after all the drugs and everything, all that was stopped, been like the doctors, I realised that this was the way to move forward. And it was then when I met Sandy, my partner. We were friends for a long time before we got together, and he was an alcoholic for 27 years, and he's now been sober for 13 years. So when we first met, he like introduced himself. Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm an alcoholic. I was like, okay. I was like, wow, this guy's really fucking honest. I was like, I couldn't have done that. And I was like, what has he done to be able to get to that place where you've been substance abusing for 27 years and you're happy and you're cool with being an alcoholic, even although you've not drunk for 13 years. And I was like, what's all this? And that's when I learned about the 12 steps and about what it done. And like, but so we would communicate like, you know, through Skype and things like that. And he was the first person that I actually properly told about the level of my addictions, the level of the fucked upness, you know, things that I hadn't even admitted properly to myself. I admitted them to him, you know, and that was really liberating and really freeing.
Yeah.
And he actually said to me, he was like, are you sure you've never done like any 12-step work? You've never read any literature? And I'm like, no. And he's like, because a lot of the conclusions and how you've went about, you know, like getting rid of your addictions falls in line with the 12 steps. So that was quite encouraging because it just showed me that I was obviously connected to something that was taking care of me. It was looking out for me. It was guiding me, you know.
It's interesting that first meeting. So he hadn't, at that point, he hadn't drunk for 13 years when you first met.
It was about 9 years, I think, then.
But he was still introducing himself as an alcoholic.
Yep. And most people who, you know, if you go through the AA process or the CA, the NA, which is narcotics, CA is cocaine, anonymous.
Okay.
You know, when you're in your sharing circle, it's hello. My name is Lesley and I'm an addict, and that's you admitting, you know. And even whilst, so for me, yes, I'm not addicted to these substances anymore, but I am very much still an addict. I've got, some people didn't have that energy. I've got that thing inside me that's like, if I like something, I want to do it again and again and again. You know?
Addictive personality. Yeah.
But what I've learned to do now, like, it's a very powerful energy to have. And if there's anybody out there also who can relate to this, who has this addiction energy, plug it into something else. Plug it into something that's going to benefit you, you know, like detoxing, getting your like house in order, all these different things that you can actually do to help yourself, you know. So it's like, didn't you think that being an addict is the be all and end all and it's shameful and it's all this shit? Aye, that's just stuff you've got to work through. But at the end of the day, if you're an addict, you are one powerful motherfucker, like, because it's, see the power and the energy and the determination that you actually put into being an addict. It's so much, like, it's, so once you can release and unbond yourself from the chains created within these addictions to external things, you can then plug them into different things. And that's like the place where I'm at now, you know. Because honestly, James, I never thought in any point in my life I would be sitting here talking to you, being happy with this being publicised. Like, that is huge. I thought I would die with this. I prayed and hoped I would be able to die with these shameful things that, you know, I'd created for myself within my life. But then it was like, I done Russel Brand's 12-step process, even although I wasn't taking substances, right? I done this the very beginning of 2020, before the shit hit the fan. And I actually started going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. So I was meeting other people, and even although I wasn't in addiction and it had been such a long time, I knew I had to psychologically deal with it. Otherwise, I wasn't going to progress. So I done my 12 steps, and like, the 4th step is the hardest step. Well, for me, it was, because you literally have to write down everything that you've ever done to another person, like to other people, to yourself, all your resentments, all the deep, shady, scary things that you've never told a soul. You've got to put them down on paper, and this is part of your healing process. And then you tell another person, and you know, that in itself is just so fucking freeing, because you can see the patterns that you have created for yourself. And within these patterns, normally what's happening is, I've went and forgot it now, but there's like core emotions. So it's your sex and relationships, your like stability, like, you know, your material things, like what makes you feel secure. What's the other things? Oh, they've slipped my mind now. But so when you go into addiction, normally what's happening is one of these main, like, primary core things that you need to function as a human is being threatened in some way, shape or form, which then makes you go and abuse drugs. And see, it's not necessarily drugs either. You know, people get stuck in abusive relationships. People get stuck in these self-sabotaging patterns, and it's addiction.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I love about specifically Russel Brand's program, is because he's removed the religious aspect of it in the way that he words it about God and stuff, you know. So on Russel Brand's first step, it's, are you fucked? Right? And it's like, that's the first step done. I've admitted I'm a bit fucked. Then the second one is, could you not be fucked? I guess I could. I guess I could probably, if I put my mind to it, I could not be fucked. Then your third one is, are you on your own going to unfuck yourself? Yes, I have the willpower and the determination. I will unfuck myself, you know. And if you go in with that attitude there, that's your first 3 steps done. Then you go into your 4th step, which is writing everything down. That takes a long time. That's really hard. Some people play with the first 3 steps for a long time before they get to the 4th step, because it's difficult. It's difficult facing your own shadow, you know. It's not easy, but what the thing that fills you up, and this is why I love Russel Brand so much, is he's done it. I mean,
he was
heroin,
heroin,
crack,
everything,
a mental, but his personality and how he is, and plus he was a comedian, so he's like, you know, living this celebrity lifestyle, and he's constantly chasing this kind of thing. So for me to witness his career,
but he was also addicted to women and the sex.
Yes, exactly, sex and women. So he had it really bad, you know, and that. Russell's story alone filled me up with so much hope, because I watched his career and I was like, if he can unfuck himself, I can unfuck myself, because I've seen how bad he was, you know. I remember watching a video with him. I think he was in like some protest or something in London, and he was up on a car, like totally butt naked and all that. And then
pure skinny.
And then he done stuff at the Edinburgh Festival as well, and he was like walking about in broken glass, and you know.
See, I didn't realise he was still actually performing. I didn't realise. I thought I thought this was before his career.
It was.
So he was doing this during.
During.
I knew the sex addiction was during, but actually, I didn't realise he was actually used like heroin and crack and all those things while he was doing shows and stuff. I didn't realise that.
So I mean, if you just look at him, you know, and he swears by the 12-step program. I know so many people who has saved their fucking life. If you're on death's door, you are in that broken place of, I'm fucked. There's only one place. I'm either gone further down and I'm dead, or I'm going to start building myself up, climbing Jacob's ladder, you know, getting back up to Mount Meru, back up to the top of our consciousness, the top of, it's like climbing your spine, you know. And so, and this is what I love about metaphysics, you know, because it's, see, since I've started detoxing and like actually learning about my body, learning about energy, it just, you start to become more full, like things didn't get stuck inside you, you know. It's like this expansion, and it's so amazing. And then you get to this point where it's like you can then, so because I've done all this, this is all like in my history, this is part of my past, which has now became a solid foundation for me to be able to grow. So it's, you know, I just feel now for me, what I can do is help other people, you know, through these very hard times, because I've been there. I've got direct experience with it, and I just know you don't need doctors and substances, you know, for addiction. You know, it's like, if you have somebody who can support you, like the 12 steps, you know, you go to meetings, you're in a safe space, you can share your stories, and it helps you with the shame and the blame, because how society is, you know, like even I used to, it's like having, it's like status snobbery, if you like. So because I was addicted to pharmaceutical drugs and like recreational drugs, at one point in my life, I seen people who were addicted to heroin as being worse than what I was. Now this was, it's like,
the stigma, yeah.
But and this was before I'd even had any knowledge about any addiction or anything like that. And for me, it's like, I actually laugh at people who, you know, they reckon they didn't have addictions, right? And it's like, what are you eating? You know, what are you watching on the telly? It's like everything in this society we are taught to add. We are never taught the art of subtraction. You know, we have to learn how to take things and remove things from our life rather than just building and building and building, because think about it, at one point or another it's going to accumulate and you have to get rid of it, you know. So even doing something that's good for you too much is bad for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, definitely. I get that, yeah. It's... So has there been on your journey, had there been times where you nearly slipped back into things? Has it just been a upward trajectory the whole way?
Pretty much, like as soon as I got rid of all the really big things, I was so proud of myself and you're so happy. Like, for me, it would have been really strange to get back into. Like, it would have, I mean, didn't get me wrong, I've had like moments, and I go through this sort of thing where it's like when I fall into this place of like, if I'm not feeling great, part of me like is like, oh, I just want to get away with it. I just want to forget about it, be like, fuck it. But I never.
Yeah.
I never.
It's a split second.
Aye, but I didn't, you know, it's like, you're still a human fucking being and shit happens in your life, but it's, for me, it's how I deal with things now. It takes me not as long to get over things, like, so it's all about recovery and progression. So, you know, if something happens, I just go back into recovery mode and just start climbing the ladder again, you know, slowly but surely. You know, I'm not so up and down, like, because the doctors, like, my trajectory and the way that I was going, if I had stayed at the doctors any longer, I would have had the bipolar label. I would have been on so many, like, what is it, antipsychotic drugs and stuff like that. But I was like, you can fuck off with your labels.
And you would have been. You would have 100%. 100%, yeah.
I mean, because there was one time, I went through. I'd had a wild week. I was like partying. I weighed 5.5 stone, James. Now I'm 7 stone now, and you know how small I am.
The fuck?
I know. Honestly, you should see these photos. I'm fucking horrific. Like, you can see my bones.
How are
really
you?
Bad.
I don't even know how that's possible. Like, how can you be alive at that point?
Oh, it was pretty horrific. But that was the week. Like, so many traumatic things had happened, and I was just fucked. And I'd sat in my sister's bathroom and I slipped my wrist, right? And she came through and she's like, fucking, what the fuck? And I slipped into a catatonic state, right? And being in a catatonic state is one of the things that's heavily associated with bipolar, you know, because it's like you get just disassociated for the world and everything. These doctors and that, because I got taken to this like psychiatric ward place called Hermit Flat, and you know, they're evaluating you and everything, and I'm just like talking in a monotone voice, like completely, like, and it's a protection thing, you know, like you don't want to tell people what's wrong with you, Lesley. I'm fine. You know, it's like,
yeah.
And so because of that thing, that's what made everybody in my family very scared of my behaviour. So I then became, you know, watched over, and I didn't like that because I wanted the freedom to do whatever it was I wanted to do, and clearly I did need some help, and you know, I mean, and things got a wee bit better after that, but you know, and at the end of the day, I wasn't actually trying to take my own life. I was just like, it was I don't know what to do. I don't know how to express myself. I don't even know what I'm feeling, and what I'm feeling, I don't know how to express it. So I'll just show you. This is how I feel, you know? And it was almost like the sensation and the feeling of being in control, I think, you know. But that's the only time I've ever done that, you know?
Yeah.
And it was just one of these very extreme moments in my life. And I never done it hard enough, obviously, because, you know, it was like I mean, I was bleeding, and I've still actually got the scar as well. I can still see it. But it's, again, that kind of behaviour I feel is part of our programming, right? Our brain functions like a computer. And all of these films that we watch, all of these things that we've been indoctrinated through school, they're programs running in our brain. So, you know, for me, a lot of these behaviours and things is stuff that you've seen off films. It's like, and you're just like replaying them and repeating them. And so it's really important for me now that I can address this and see this, that a lot of these programs that are running within the brain, they are only that. They're not even me. You know, it's like cult films, things like, so The Labyrinth, for example. This was a film I grew up on.
I love that movie.
I know, it's fucking amazing. Like David Bowie, that was what I loved that guy. Yeah. He was a wee lass.
Yeah, I love it. How many times did you watch that movie? Like,
oh, I don't know it word for word, Ken. All the songs. And
all those movies. Did you ever see a film called Dark Crystal as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Kind of.
Aye.
All those kind of things.
Never Ending Story.
Never Ending Story.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're all similar kind of storylines, and like you keep mentioning there, programming, the word program. None of these programs, these TV things or films that they were, you know, if you look into the history of it, again, that's another rabbit hole, but it's all programming.
Yes,
all, like you say, these programs are set into us from a very young age, aren't they? So
when these programs are running in the brain, right, it's like we're constantly jumping between the left and the right. So it's either one or the other, but what we are trying to achieve now is being in this centre place, being in this place in the middle, which is bringing your two hemispheres into balance with each other. And magnetically, what we're trying to do as well is, so we are like a magnet, right? We function, our energetic aura that comes out of our body is like, I don't know if you've watched any Ken Wheeler's stuff, who does all the magnetics.
Yeah, I've watched some of it.
Not
lots, not too much of it, but
so like some of these like how it works, you know, like our magnetic energy has been split. So our poles, our North Pole and our South Pole, what we are trying to do is bring them back together and fuse them together again so that we can become whole. But during this process of trying to do that, if you think about a magnet, right, and if you break it, what happens? You can't put it back together again, can you? There's this repulsion that happens. So this has happened to us. We've had this split occur within our consciousness and within our energy. So during this process of trying to fuse them back together, it's really tough. And this is what I feel like getting rid of your addictions is all about. Detoxing, cleansing the body, it just allows for this process to work a lot more. And
body and mind, right?
Yes, body and mind. It's so that everything can all function as a whole part instead of being broken, fragmented, you know.
Because obviously there's no point in doing one without the other, right?
No.
No,
you've got to have it all, you know.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that you ever got to that. I guess that was the lowest point. Lock yourself in a room and trying and doing that. I don't even. Like I said to Carly, we've all used the term, "Oh, I'm depressed. I feel depressed," but without really knowing what it truly. I personally know that I don't know what that truly means. I've used that phrase many times. I've been down and kind of momentary feeling sorry for myself. Probably felt really intense at certain points. You know, how am I going to get out of this situation? But never been like what you're talking about. What Carly was talking about, and you know, to hear her talk. I mean, she like I said to her, like I say to you, I appreciate your honesty and your bravery for even talking about it, and thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about it. But with Carly, as she has massive, huge ups and downs, and and to hear her tell me over the phone quite a few times that she doesn't want to be here and that she's feeling that way.
But that's good that she's got that, you know, where she can actually express that, and you are non-judgmental towards that, you know, because that in itself is medicine. Being able to have clear, open communication with somebody who can create a safe space for you, that is amazing medicine, you know.
Because we know chemicals are not the answer. They just numb you, right?
Yeah.
They just numb you.
Totally.
If we go back to the whole what you were talking about, all the natural, what was it, the Rockefeller family, up until 200 years ago, we were using all these natural remedies, CBD oil, cannabis, all kinds of natural things, and then he kind of monopolized that industry and brought in these very toxic, very addictive, petroleum based, and then he bought all the kind of medical training facilities, funded all the colleges, so they were for that specific reason to teach that narrative, right? To push the never curing things, just possibly covering symptoms of things, but always keeping you hooked to those drugs, and that's the narrative that we see today. And your experience of it and my experience, many people who I talk to, they don't want to cure people. They don't want to fix these underlying issues, whether they be psychological or physical. They just want to push drugs onto people. And listen to that list of, I don't even know what most of them are, what was the point of them, but just that's a scary list of prescribed drugs that they were giving a child and a teenager and a young woman as well. I can't get my head around it.
It's sometimes, when I actually think about how many, a chemical cocktail it was inside my body. I'm actually probably fairly lucky to actually be here unscathed and pretty healthy. That's how I know the power of the body for being able to regenerate itself.
So tell me, kinesiology. That's what we're here to talk about. This is obviously. This is the build up to the thing. I if I'm honest, and I'm embarrassed to say, I don't even know anything about it. So, if you just kinesiology, what is it, and how did you get into it?
Well, so it was one of my sister's friend. He had been getting treatment through kinesiology for his back, and said to my sister, "You should go for your shoulder." She had a really sore shoulder, and Debbie was like, "Oh, this woman Carol, she does kinesiology and Reiki." I was like, "Oh, I'll come. I'll get some Reiki," because I didn't know, like you, didn't have a clue what kinesiology was, and so we went down, and Debbie went first. And as soon as I seen what was happening, I was like, "Oh, I don't want Reiki, I want kinesiology," because I seen so she was muscle testing my sister, and you're shown how you can communicate with the subconscious mind and how your body can't lie, So the muscle, when my sister told her a false name, the muscle switched off, which is an indicator that it's not the truth. You see, so. And this is how, when you're muscle testing, you're feeling for the change if the muscle's on or off, and that determines, where you need to go. So I'd witnessed this happen to my sister, who all the way down to Gala, she was driving, she was having to look at me like this, right, because her neck, her shoulder and her neck was fucked. And after it, we're driving home, our shoulders are relaxed, and she's like, "I can't believe that." She's like, "I feel amazing." I'm like, "I feel amazing as well," because I had been a hairdresser, that was my trade. So for years, we doing all this, my shoulder blades are always just crunchy and all that. And Carol worked on me, and I was just so amazed. I just couldn't believe, I had emotional releases. She was touching me in different parts of the body, and psychologically things were happening, and I was crying, and I was just like, wow, what, I can't believe I've never even...
Okay, so talk me through it. So what physically happened to your sister? What was this person physically doing? You're saying touching, but massaging, or just touching in specific places and talking and saying things?
So what it is, right, is when I'm doing kinesiology, somebody's on my bed, and I have my book in front. So I need to determine, the person will come with maybe about 3 or 4 things that they want to work on. I then ask the body, what is the most appropriate thing to work on? What does the subconscious feel is the most important thing? So I ask the body for priority. The body then guides me to what issue it is by giving me a switched off muscle. Okay. And we then determine if it's something in Touch for Health, which is to do with the 42 muscles. And then I have another book, which is holistic, which is could be things with the chakras or more energetic things, So then if the body wants something for Touch for Health, this is where the 42 muscles are within the body, right? So these 42 muscles, they govern all your organs and govern certain parts of the body. And then you've got your meridian lines, which is basically your magnetic energy.
Yeah.
Then you've got the neurovascular, which is like points on your head. Then you've got the neurolymphatic, which is, for me, this is the most important almost, because your neurolymphatic is where your immune system is, right? And it's like your neck, here, all down the middle, your groin, and on the insides of your thighs. Yeah. And so this is, all this energy, right, is coming in and out of these points on the body. So if somebody comes in and they maybe having bladder issues, right, I then ask the body to take me, and I'm testing. So I'm testing their wrist like that, and I'm going through the book, and their subconscious is seeing what I'm doing. And then when I get a switched off muscle, I then know that that's the muscle that the body wants. Okay. So then I go along the whole list of the muscles, because there could be 3 muscles that need worked on for the one thing. So once we've determined that, we then go in and test the muscle to see if it's balanced or not. And so this could be, so for example, the fascia lata muscle, if I was testing that, the person's lying down, I've got to then lift their leg 45 degrees, turn their foot out, hold their hip down there, and then I'm pushing in. Right now, if this person was in balance, they would be able to resist me pushing that, right? But 9 times out of 10, if the body's already told you that it needs work, it's going to be out. So then I'm not putting loads of pressure on it. See, this is the thing, it's like, it's the rule of 2, which is you apply 2 pounds of pressure to the point for 2 seconds, right? So if they can't hold that, then I then go round and do the other side, and then that's me now knowing that balance is off, and so I have to go in and rebalance it. So then the body takes me to either the neurolymphatics, the neurovascular, the meridian lines, the acupressure holding points. So depending on if it needs all of them, 1 of them, 2 of them, I do the work. And sometimes the body might need a form of support. So sometimes the body can just stop talking to you, and you might have to do things like a thymus tap, which, it just centers the body again, or they might want a card reading, or they might want my shamanic drum, or they might want the Tibetan bowls. It just depends. But you're solely listening to the body. It's not really me doing the work, if you get what I mean. It's them, and their openness to this. So then once I've done the stuff that the body has asked for me to do, like, so the lymphatics, this can be quite painful. Like, oh my God, I've been in a lot of pain having the lymphatics worked on, because if you think about it, right, you've got some lymphatic points like on your ribs, and nobody ever really touches your ribs. No. So if you think about me with my little wee tiny fingers getting into these spots, it's like, oh my God, that's really sore. But it's only for a little minute, you've just got to work this energy out. And sometimes you can really feel, especially on the lymphatic nodes, like on the back, it's like grit. It's like somebody's got crystals like inside these bits. So once you've done that, you then go back and you retest. And then this is the bit that I love, because the person who is lying on the bed receiving this can then feel for themselves the difference that they're able to hold. So if I'm going to retest this fascia lata again, get the leg up and I'm pushing, and it will not budge. It can't move. Like, it's just so solid and strong. They're like, oh my God. Then they can see the difference between how they weren't holding that muscle before. So and the body could give me like a whole load of muscles that need worked on, and I just have to literally go through and balance them all.
So is it a type of thing where I could have it done one time and feel a difference in something, or does it have to be over a kind of period of sessions?
Well, you can definitely feel the benefits. I mean, it's just such a good thing, because you can see and feel it, but it does take a couple of days, for everything to integrate to the body, and depending on what it is. But I would definitely say, so I was receiving kinesiology for over a year before I started training, and it was just after I had my first go, I was like, no, my body needs this every month. It's like a wee reset. It just keeps on top of everything, and like, it's helped me with things like, so for me, talking in public was a major issue. I used to have a stutter, right? And I used to have like total like speech therapy and everything. Really? Really? Like
you had a physical stutter?
Yeah, I had a physical stutter. Yeah. So, like, and sometimes when I would get high anxiety and high nervous, I would get like this, it's like fear paralysis, like when I go to talk, especially like, and see, this is how I know all this stuff works, because look at me now.
I think I used to, where I couldn't speak.
Yep, like,
I just
like
felt,
just that, oh my fucking,
I've experienced that at various times in my life. For someone, and I am a talker, I'm a speaker, but I've had that where I just felt so
it's
tight
just like
and tense.
Something shuts down inside you. You know, so it's helped me with things like that, and I know that it's working, because now I didn't have an issue with talking in public and talking to people and stuff, you know. So there really is no boundaries or barriers with what it can help with. And also, so I've not done my massage course yet, but I've got my kinesiology exam on next Saturday.
Oh wow.
So it's only 6 days.
That was going to be my next question to you. Are you fully trained now, or on the verge of being
on Saturday,
fully qualified? Yeah.
Hopefully, well, not hopefully. I know I'm going to pass.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to pass.
Yeah. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
I know you will, but yeah.
So, you know,
wow.
So that'll be me having like the foundation, and then I can go on and do the next course up. But I want to kind of master the basics first, which is basically you're learning about the 42 muscles, you know.
Yeah.
So once I've mastered that and I've got a bit of practice, and I'm going to book myself a massage course for after the year, because also I'm learning to drive right now. I've got my theory test, and so everything's just like the past, like 2020, whilst I know for so many people it has been an absolute fucking nightmare. I feel like I was made for 2020. Like everything in my life up until this point was designed so that I could propel myself through the bullshit of 2020, which is what I've done. But at the time it didn't feel like that. I felt like I was getting nowhere. Like I'm like, oh my god, like I'm never going to finish. And now everything's just came round 360, and it's like, you actually have been working hard, Lesley. You have been doing your homework, you know. It's
good to hear a positive story, because coming out of these past year and a half, 2 years, because I don't think many people have that same story. So fair play to you. And obviously I wish you all the luck with all that. So is the plan to go on yourself and teach yourself, or to have your own kind of just to do it as a living, or kind of?
Well, definitely for me it is. That's how I want to create my stability within my life. You know, I need to get a place where, because I'm practicing my house just now. Ideally, I do not want it to be in my house. If anything, I will build something in my garden, you know, like a purpose-built building where I can do it, or I will go somewhere and I'll rent a room or something like that. Just whatever kind of comes up. But my thing is to be able to do the kinesiology. So a session in kinesiology lasts roughly about 1.5 hours, and then half an hour massage after it, because I feel it's very important, because when you're working on the lymphatic system, it can be a wee bit uncomfortable. And what I love about Carol is when she's finished with the kinesiology, is she was a masseuse before she was a kinesiologist. She's amazing. And it just integrates the work that she's done.
Is she like the Jedi Master?
Oh, she's amazing. Carol is 71.
Wow.
She is fitter than most people my age. Yeah. She has got the energy. I mean, age really is nothing. Like, you know, I've got friends that are like so much older than me, and there's no barriers. Like, there's no difference, because we're all energetic beings. We don't see ourselves as being an age, you know.
Yeah.
So Carol is just a pure inspiration, you know. She has had so much patience, and she's really humorous, she's funny, you know. Learning with her has been absolutely amazing. So it's made the whole process fun.
Brilliant.
You know.
It's good to hear that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I want to just continue with the kinesiology, and also like I'm at metaphysical school. I've been there for nearly 2.5 years now, and the amount of stuff that I've learnt from there about
what is that? what is that?
Well, it's like you learn about your body, the energy, the etymology, plant medicine, all of this. Like, you learn about how to unfuck yourself in a
natural way.
And in a metaphysical way, you know, where doing cleanses, and it's like, it's been so beneficial for me, and especially through 2020, like things like I would have So I went from being a person like in my 20s, medicating every day with medication, to then somebody who in 2020 was having meditation every day instead of medication. So it's like, oh, I'm having my meds this morning, which would be meditation, you know. So it's taught me all these different things, breathing techniques, all the esoteric stuff. Like for me, I am like into astrology, into human design, into Kinesiology, which is one of the things that we learn at Secret Energy, and it's created this beautiful tribe of people who are all doing the same thing. We're all learning, everybody shares their information. I don't know if you've ever seen some of Simon Bomar's stuff. It's him that runs.
No.
And you know what? I need to stop calling it a metaphysical school, because school's kind of like associated with indoctrination and stuff like that. It is,
yeah.
And he calls it innerversity, which that makes much more sense, because literally you're learning how to
I like that.
Understand yourself.
I like that.
So it's the innerversity that I'm at.
Words, like I said, we spoke before, words are important.
Yes.
Words are like spells, right?
Yes, they are. They do. They create our reality.
It's not just they do literally create our reality, right? They're not just what is sound, a vibration. It's not just a meaningless. Yeah. It's not just a meaningless thing, is it? I've noticed that in my day-to-day conversations, I'll be like, oh, I hate him, or I hate the police.
And that's such a strong word.
It's such a strong word. In reality, I don't know what hate is. I don't have hate in my heart.
I don't think, you didn't strike me as even being capable of that.
I have no concept of what hate is, but
it's just programming.
I use that word over and over again, and I feel like it's such a negative, horrible thing. I don't know if we spoke about it before, but I'd seen various kind of experiments where this guy had to put these 2 jars of rice, and every day he was like speaking nasty things to this one pot, and another thing he was speaking love and happiness. And again, you don't know what's true, or the internet's a very weird creature. There is, of course, lots of real. When people use the whole because obviously I'm all the things that I like research. People will throw you're just a YouTuber, or you learned it from YouTube. But yourself, in every other aspect of their life, they might be saying, you're just they've used YouTube's just a platform. Yeah. It's not. Of course, it's got lots of rubbish on there. Of course, it has. But there's lots of real There's lots of scientists share their peer-reviewed papers.
Exactly.
You can't just dismiss everything on YouTube because of a platform there. So I know for a fact that these same people questioning my research, saying all I ever do is YouTube videos, are the same people who used YouTube to fix their boiler, or to fix their car, or to learn another language, or to learn how to do CPR. You can't you can't pick and choose what you. Of course, like I've just said, there's lots of rubbish on YouTube. You've got to be able to use your own discernment and your own. It has to resonate with you, right? Yes. With everything, these things have to resonate with you, and you have to use your own discernment and work out what's real and what's not. But you can't just discount. There's so much information. We live in the world of unlimited technology, unlimited information at our fingertips. And
there's no excuse for not having.
There's no excuse, and you can. And I know I speak personally from this point of view, where you can just be stuck in certain rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And there's so much more out there. Like a lot of the stuff, kinesiology, and kind of so many other things that I've not even looked into. It's almost kind of too much. I find it hard dealing with what's going on now.
Yeah. I just kind of feel it's like, with everything that's happening in the world, and there's always a distraction, right? There's always something, but we're going into another lockdown. This happened at this gig, and there was this ritual and that ritual, and it's like bringing it back to, but how are you? Are you a wee bit fucked? Could you be less fucked? And I feel this is the important thing. It's like we get really carried away and really involved and going to protests and doing this, but at the end of the day, if you're still fucked within your body, what's the point in that? How are you actually going to help anybody else if you're still fucked, you know?
It's really interesting that you say that, because I know personally that I should have had a break. I should have taken a break from all of this so many times. So many times. I feel like it's just been a real, if anything, I've been obsessed about it. It's really been a real negative influence on me, you know, to just constantly think about this. We live right now, I know I'm trying to be living your world where you like separate yourself from all that stuff and just do you, but right now it just feels like we're in this spiritual war, psychological war.
Yes.
Most people don't even know they're on a battlefield. And I do what I do because I don't want my daughter to live in this. Like I'm 44 and 1977, and I had a childhood. There was no internet. There was no phones, no nothing. We went outside. We played. I lived in the woods, and my mum had to force us to come home to eat something, and we'd be straight back out. And I'm so grateful that I had that, because I look at my 18-year-old and she's lived this world of technology and just always on the phone, always being watched on Instagram and Snapchat and all these awful. I'm at this point, and I know I'm using technology right now to talk to you, but I'm so ready just to go in the woods. Just to live in the woods, barefooted, no technology at all, grow my own food and just live off grid. I'm so done with this at this point. But where are we going? This is an evil. It feels like an evil world we live in right now. I don't know. What's your sense of it?
Well, I'm really glad that you actually just expressed that there about like being off grid and all this kind of stuff, because essentially what you're talking about here is sovereignty, right? And I know this word is like getting thrown about so much right now, and it's like, you know, people are attaching themselves to it, but it's like it is an actual real thing. Like, so for example,
you could use that term and not have the full understanding of what it actually means.
Sovereignty, I would say, you know, I am a sovereign being, you know, my psyche, my body, I've got autonomy now over my body. You know, there's not all these external things ruling it, but it's sovereignty is a part of everything. And there is areas in my life where I'm not so sovereign, you know, as in where I live, how I live in my council house, you know, all these kind of things. But for example, my amazing friend Dunya, who we do a lot of work together, you know, like healing stuff, and I go up to her bit in Skye. Now they've got a croft, this beautiful bit of land in Skye. Wow. Well, it's outside Skye. It's a wee place called Dorney near Ken Ellen Dornan Castle.
Okay, wow, but still,
it's beautiful.
Wow.
But her and her husband, you know, like they're off grid, so they have compost toilets, they grow their own food, they have a polytunnel, and it's, for me, that's a direct example of what sovereignty is. You know, they live off the land. They do not need to tap into the matrix all that much. You know, I mean, obviously they have the internet, they have electricity and stuff like that, but you know, in ways of being less reliant on this bullshit place, that's the way we want to go, you know, and it can be done. It is a thing, you know, it is achievable. And my friend Dunya, she's been a wonderful, beautiful influence on myself. She's really helped me, you know, come out of my shell. And Dunya, actually, she's like an embodiment teacher. So, you know, like and I feel this is a big problem for so many people, is we're in our heads, we're not in our bodies. So when you learn to actually be in the body and get good with like who you are inside it, it's so liberating, it's so amazing, you know. So being in this vibration and frequency attracts the right people to you, you know. And this is what detoxing, helping yourself, unfucking yourself does. Like, it literally just brings the right people into your life at the right time. And this is the law of attraction, essentially. You know?
Even in that, I'm not sure exactly how long we've been even aware of each other, how long we've been friends, but even in that short time, I've seen your journey. I love your content, you know, all your videos and stuff. I've seen it change. Going into this kind of really professional kind of like look, like it's even I've seen it, you know. I find it really interesting. Although obviously I've not looked into it, so I don't have an understanding of it.
Yeah.
But to hear your story and to know where you were, to see where you are right now, it's
well, I can remember the first time we had a conversation. I was actually in the back of my sister's van, and Danny had just said to me, "Oh, by the way, there's going to be this truthers camp, remember?" And I can remember leaving you voicemail because.
Oh right, that's right.
Because Danny was like, "Are you not James's mate?" I'm like, "James who?" He's like, "Robertson." I went, "No." He's like, "Oh, you two have to be pals." He's like, "Oh, what the hell, you're getting great and all that."
That's right. You were.
I was going to come. It was Dawn's.
You were with Danny first, and you were going to come to the
Truthers camp.
Yeah. That turned out.
And that would have been, was that 2020 or 2019? I don't know.
Is that 2020?
There's part of me saying it was the lockdown. I think it was 2019.
2019. No, that's right. He kind of like, oh, we should. And you were going to come.
Because Danny was too far away, Ken, so he was like, you should go.
Do you know what? I really, at the time I enjoyed it, but it turned out to be a little bit dark in some other ways. There was a lot of kind of like stuff that went on. It was quite interesting for a bunch of truthers. There was they're not. What's the word I'm looking for? But people thought I was an undercover.
Well, baby, I was just about to say that.
People thought I was undercover police infiltrating this low-level truth.
I was just about to say, like.
That's insane to me.
I've had direct experience though with like being in these truth movements, especially stuff pertaining to the shape of this place that we live in. There definitely is people who work for common purpose, and I was in the belly of the beast for a long time.
Yeah.
And that scared the fuck out of me because this person was involved with me, my family, my sister, and then it gets to the point where it's so in your life and then you can't see it, but it's so obvious. And then I was like, wow, okay, I need to, hot to leave this shit.
So the reason I was talking, it was probably in the best that you didn't turn up, because in the end it felt like a bit of an energy dump, an energy vacuum. Because it started off, it was all fantastic, and then just certain things happened, and then there was just little
people being suspicious.
And then I just never understood the police thing. The real people. You're a copper. You are a copper. Like, you're undercover. You see, like, I was like, what? Infiltrating a bunch of like mothers and kids having a barbecue in a few tents, talking about breaking lockdowns. But really, like real people.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, see, because you're like well over 6 foot and all that, you stereotypically could fit that bill, but even nobody knows.
I didn't realise height was a stipulation of being.
Not now, it's not, but it used to be.
That was it. They were like, you look like a copper, and I guess my whole. It's not my story. It's my real life. I was born in Edinburgh. My whole family is still in Edinburgh, but my parents moved to England when I was young, so I have this accent. So they were like, he's just pretending to be a Scotsman with an English accent. But it was really weird because it was a bunch of truthers. We're supposed to be more open. We're supposed to be more compassionate. Yeah, we're supposed to be like inclusive, and it just didn't turn out to be that way. I found it quite sad in the end, to be fair. I am quite glad you didn't go, because it might have affected you in a certain way.
Well, the thing is like what I said to you the other night when we were trying to do this through Zoom and it wasn't working. Just trust that we were meant to do it here today in person, and it's the universe. It's the universe that does all this. It's synchronicity, It's like so.
Yeah, I mean, just like I had a really, really bad experience with going abroad recently. Okay. And the universe was telling me, the universe was screaming at me.
Go, I know.
Screaming at me. And because of my arrogance, selfishness,
defiance,
naivety, I didn't listen to it.
I knew that. See, when you were like, can you make me a vaccine passport? I was like, right, give me the stuff, I'll try. And I'm on Photoshop, got on my way into my kinesiology. And I think it was my sister. I was being like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm making a vaccine passport. They're like, what the fuck? I'm like, aye. And I knew it. I was like, nah, I'm not even, it's not my place to even say, but I knew you were like a dog with a bone and you were just determined you were going to do it. And I was like, this is going to cause him pain, man.
By the way, it's one of the biggest mistakes in my life. One of the biggest mistakes in my life. We need to trust in these things.
Yes, we do.
It was everything about it. It was just, don't go. And I didn't listen. I paid the price for it, and I'll never ever. I mean, we see the way things are going right now. The way it is, I won't ever travel again. To be honest with you.
Yeah, but it's no.
I mean, I've been lucky enough. There's so many places I would love to have went, and I've been lucky enough to be able to travel quite a bit. But once you've had that taste, you want to do it, and with everything that's going on right now, it certainly looks like it's going to be a requirement to fly anywhere. It's going to be, no longer going to be allowed to take one of these bullshit PCR tests.
I've already accepted the fact that I'm not going to be going to another country anytime soon. And I'm cool with that acceptance. Yeah, it seems to be the gateway to like inner peace
with everything.
Yeah,
with everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, on your journey, this is a very deep question. What is consciousness? How are we even capable of quantifying that, or even verbalizing what? Obviously, I know we have a soul, and that's an energy, and energy doesn't go away; it just changes into a different form, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what is consciousness?
Well, I feel
to you.
Well, for me, especially with my relationship that I have with plant medicine in particular, this has really shown me that everything that I thought I knew, it's all just teachings, like when you have left your body and you've died a few times, you view consciousness very, very differently. You view your body very differently, and this is why it's so important. Like my body now, I laugh at all these muppets. I'm an astronaut and I'm going into space. It's like no. Your body is the original spacesuit, guys. It's no.
It's only real spacesuit. Right?
So if you put on a spacesuit, you're double bagging basically because we're already in space. You know what I mean? Like so. For me, this is why healing my physical body, healing my mental body, my emotional body, all of this, it makes me become a better spaceman, a space woman, if you like.
Yeah. Yes. You gotta be completely correct now.
So it's like.
What's your pronoun?
And consciousness, it expands, and the way that we've been taught to live our life is constricting. It doesn't allow you to expand. So
the matrix.
Yes. So I've been working on, expanding my consciousness, and it's made me a more compassionate, loving, caring, patient person who is able to accept life on life's terms, and just learning to love myself a little bit more, So expanding this consciousness, then for me, I feel like consciousness kind of works like how we're told a virus works, because when you're attracted to somebody who's like quite conscious and aware, it's a vibration. You're attracted to that.
Yeah.
Then, it catches on. So
high
for me, it's
vibration,
almost like consciousness could be the real virus that they didn't want catching on.
Yeah. I mean,
because imagine if everybody came...
Apart from the media, of course.
Aye, aware of this, it's like... So... For me, it's really about becoming whole, and this is what kinesiology teaches. This is what we learn at Secret Energy. It's about connecting these poles within ourselves so that we're not split and we're not fragmented in our consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Once we create not a perfect, but a suitable container that is built strong enough to withstand all the stuff that goes on out there. Consciousness is something that once we get into that place, for me, it's something that we can work with and use for us, but I didn't even have an awareness of what consciousness even was. It's just something we're not taught about.
We're not.
We're taught just to be these like robots that consume, eat, obey. Very they live.
They live. By the way, that film way before its time.
Totally.
Way before its time. You watch it now and it's like.
It always gives me a giggle when they're fighting. Put the glasses on.
By the way, anybody who's not watched that film, and a lot of people haven't even heard of that film. I was quite surprised. Go watch it. They live, and just see how much relevance it has to today's what's actually going on with now. Anyway, but anyone who's really interested in kind of kinesiology, I'll also put some links and videos in the comments below, so people, you can as well if you would like to, just to help understand truly understand what it is and stuff like that. So we're heading up to an hour and 50 minutes, not another 10 minutes, but it's such a big thing, and I apologise that I didn't look into it properly, and I'm certainly going to do that now after we have this conversation. Maybe give it a try. Like I've said to you before, this whole thing, the thing that's going on right now, has been kind of really negative on my life, and the way I think about it is like people and I've heard various people like yourself or other people say, I took a break from Facebook for 6 months and it was the best thing I did. The best thing I did.
I have breaks for it.
And I need to, but I've just in my mind, I'm just like, okay, I'm not a superhero. I'm not, in reality, I'm sharing some memes and some videos. I'm not saving lives here. If I can get one person, there's been a couple of people reach out, especially people who don't comment. They're there. They're on. I forget they're even on my Facebook.
Yeah.
They're there. They don't comment, but they've reached out and said, listen, you made me think about something. When that happens, that makes it worth it.
Yes.
It does. If I could just get one person to make a more informed decision, even if they chose to still comply and do what they want to do, at least they looked and at least they made that conscious choice. That's all I want. I'm not telling people, well, no, I am telling people, don't get it, don't do it. But if you're gonna do it, especially if you're gonna push your children forward, just like take an hour out and just have a look, right? There's other ways to heal ourselves and better ourselves, like you say. Kinesiology is one of them, mentally and physically. I just feel like these people who perpetrate, these psychopaths, these evil elite, this 1% who run this world, these families, they're satanic in every single. I feel like we're like a human batteries, like in the Matrix. But all this negativity, these demons, I call them demons. They're living off this They live like these Dementors and Harry Potter, or whatever, just sucking the life out of us. And while we're arguing with each other, and we're separate. They've always used divide and conquer, Lesley, whether that be race, religion, sexuality, now unvaccinated versus vaccinated.
Divide and conquer, create the chaos and then come in with the order. I mean, it is as old as like, it's just how it is.
How old it's as old as time. But until we stop fighting each other, until we stop bickering over each other, and I've been guilty of. It's pure frustration, you're trying to help people. I do what I do because I genuinely want to help people. Okay, I get frustrated. I call people.
But you're only human.
I know.
All learning.
When I'm shouting, you're sheeple and stuff like that.
I know.
I don't know. It comes from a place of goodness. Genuinely, just manifests itself in probably the wrong way sometimes. It's because trying to help people sometimes is like running into a burning building, pulling them out, just for them.
The house is on fire, by the way.
Just for them to punch you in the nose and run back in the fire. It's a thankless task. We don't do what we do for money, to make friends.
No, it certainly won't be popular.
Certainly not to be popular. My good God, I've on my journey, I don't know what yours has been like, but I've lost many friends of 20 years plus. I'm saying friends.
Well, I think you were pretty vocal about a lot of very controversial things at the start of your journey, so I think that's why you got impacted quite a lot from that. I never had the balls at the time to be so. Like in 2015, no way I could have put some of these things that I weren't about in 2015 on my Facebook. It would have been sectioned. Pretty much. I
mean, people question my mental abilities and my my intelligence multiple times. You know, my problem was I just heard these things and it resonated so much. I wanted to share it before I even
I thought about the impact.
Before I even knew what the impact was going to be, or before I even had a true understanding, or even how to defend myself.
Or even how to approach it without people being
I just bleh, and then people's reactions was just like,
it's almost like the hackles, like that. What?
Aye,
I've had pretty bad.
It's been a journey, like it's a journey for us all. The awakening. I guess has there been times where I would be thinking, I wish they could plug me back into the Matrix and I didn't have to think about these things. But no,
use the blue pill.
I give it the blue pill. Just
oh, by the way, I'm looking forward to seeing the Matrix.
I don't know if I am.
Oh, I am. I just want to see what they're going to push anyway. You know,
because.
It's the
by the way, I love the whole.
By
the way, the whole concept of it.
Yeah.
We're living that right now. We could be in the Matrix right now. Like this. We are.
Aye.
The whole. Who I know it was the Wachowski brothers at the time. Now it's the Wachowski sisters.
I was going to say
both of them. And again, we all know films. I still love films though. We all know films are programming. You know, we've seen the last 2 decades. How many movies have been the whole virus background? I Am Legend. You
can't even really find a movie now without the undercurrent of. Yeah. The agenda. You literally can't.
It's hard to watch movies now when you're fully...
But at least when you are watching this stuff now though, we are observing, we're not absorbing, and this is the difference. And I learn a lot about symbolism and that, so when I'm watching things I know exactly what they're trying to do in my mind, and I'm like, no, I reject it, you know. This is what you do.
But I just found the whole concept of that story that incredible. I think it was way before it's kind of. So I love that trilogy. So I'm just a little bit worried about that they're gonna spoil that. I've seen the trailer. I've seen the trailer. You can never know, because I've seen trailers that were fantastic and the movie was terrible. So I will watch it because it looks. Because that is one of my favourite trilogies of all time.
It'll be very intriguing to see where they're going to. Because apparently Neo's been taking the blue pills or something, so he's went back to the Matrix.
What's your understanding of it? Is it so? When is it set? Because Neo died at the end, and she was dead. Trinity.
That's right, because she had the big spike thing.
Yeah, so she was dead. So is it set after that, and he somehow?
Well, see, but the thing is, though, we don't really know if Neo died. It was like he went into the light, the source. That's
true.
Remember,
But she was definitely dead.
She was definitely. Is she back in this one?
She is. Aye.
Well, but remember.
But Morpheus is not.
He had the power to. Remember, he could turn himself into code and pull the bullet out of her. Yeah, it's true. So maybe somehow. I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Didn't pull the spikes out, well. But no, what's the release date for that one?
22nd of December.
I'd definitely be.
Which esoterically, 22, it's a master number, you know.
It's tough. It's tough being awake, and I use the term awake, not woke, because it's been inverted. I hate when people use that woke.
See, I'm
cancel
really
culture and all that.
These terms, you know, especially.
Which word I'm hating right now? Sustainability. I really hate that word. This whole
COP. Bollocks. I know.
2 weeks of billionaires flying in on private jets. With Biden. Biden had an 85 car motorcade, all gas guzzling. For 2 weeks of parties, prostitutes, and pedophilia, probably blood drinking, totally clogging up the whole city. And then nothing changing ever.
Well, it was like, so they commissioned a few artists to do these big pieces for this global climate bollocks.
Global.
I know. It's like, and
they're pushing. By the way, how much are they pushing? I don't watch mainstream, but you can't escape it. This agenda of climate change.
It's
massively.
It's wild.
Climate crisis. No, climate emergency.
I mean, do you know, it's like anybody who thinks that this place, well, it's fucking Scotland. It's not getting warmer. It is not getting warmer. I mean, hello. We're heading into a fucking ice age, literally.
Greta, you were in Glasgow. Don't tell me it's getting hotter.
I know. But
we're seeing more floods though.
I mean, it's like
People who live next to rivers being surprised that they got flooded. You know, people living like building houses in Tornado Alley, going, "Oh fuck!" I live at the bottom of a volcano, but it's. Listen, I know it's a whole different agenda.
Yeah,
we nearly finished anyway. We just had a little laugh, but it's just like this place, this Earth, whatever shape it is.
Yeah.
It's always went through climate change.
Exactly,
Man,
and it's always gonna.
It's always gonna.
But they're just trying to capitalise and change our consciousness.
That exact word, capitalise, in so many different levels. Capitalism, to make money from it. Carbon tax, more control.
And all these electric cars. And
that's a cause of, by the way, being mined by African children.
Exactly.
And having to be charged by fossil fuel. It's a total contradiction.
I know, all of it is. It's like they got a neon sign, right, which Sandy made for this big, it's in between Ibrox and somewhere else on the motorway going to Glasgow. It's huge. It's like one of the biggest signs in Glasgow. Now, the amount of energy and resources and everything that it takes to, one, make that, and two, run it, it's like, come on, like, seriously?
At this point, they don't even care.
No, it's just...
It's a pantomime, right?
It's an oxymoron.
It's like, an oxymoron. You know, it's an oxymoron.
Aye.
It's just... It's if you don't laugh about
exactly, if you didn't laugh, you fucking wreck.
Well, Lesley, thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
That's us getting up to the 2 hour. That's us getting up to the 2 hour mark. And once again, thank you so much for coming on.
It's been a quick 2 hours.
It's been very quick. Yeah. I appreciate your honesty, your bravery, and talking about all the various things. Same as I said to Carl, it's been very interesting. Again, anybody else really interested in finding out about kinesiology, we'll put some links in the comments below. We appreciate it all. As always, we appreciate your ongoing support for the podcast. If you like the content, if you enjoyed this conversation, why not press the subscribe button in the bottom corner there. There we go, pointing at there. There you go. We're always looking for new subscribers, so help support the podcast. And that's it. From me and Lesley, we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.